Let's talk a little bit about plastic, its possibilities and its problems. Think of a world without plastics. You might want to take a quick look right now and take inventory of everything around you that is plastic or includes plastics in some way. Think of a childhood without plastics. No Legos, no dolls, no balls or pull toys. No lightweight, brightly colored, easily cleaned, and hard to break toys. Think of designing without plastics. At some point, you'll all use the 3D modeler. Maybe a lot of what you design is not critical to life, but some designers are working with medical professionals to make body parts. That's pretty important. How would the medical industry function without plastic? Gloves, tubing, sterile packaging for blood, plasma, drugs. Look at this picture. The housings are plastic, the bags are plastic, the tubes are plastic, and that's just what you can see. Lots of plastic insulation and plastic innards. We're not talking trendy stuff here. This goes to people's lives. Think about all the foods you buy that are packaged in plastic. Now imagine buying them packaged in glass or metal or paper. It could be done. It used to be that way. I remember when mayonnaise and ketchup only came in glass bottles. They were a lot heavier, and when you dropped them, it was a much bigger mess to clean up. Glass doesn't bounce. In the 19th century, plastic compounds were used to make combs and buttons and even jewelry. Women wore their hair up and they all needed combs. Plastic compounds were cheaper than metal and they were sturdy. They could be colored to look like more expensive materials like tortoiseshell or even jade. That was a plus. When synthetic plastics were first introduced in the early 20th century, they earned respect and admiration. They really helped in the film and electrical industries. Metal wires need insulation. Cameras used to be completely dependent on celluloid film. In 1909, a Belgian chemist, Leo Baekeland, developed the first truly synthetic plastic. He called it Bakelite. Designers and manufacturers loved it. It was heat resistant and pretty scratch resistant. It was moldable and it didn't conduct electricity, so it was great at insulation. This is the famous Model 500 phone housing that Henry Dreyfuss designed in 1949. I know, it probably looks old and clunky to you, but when I was growing up, everyone had at least one of these in their homes. They were indestructible. They lasted for decades. You never needed to replace them, just like the Model T. They were a really great, long-lasting plastic product. Post-World War II, the GIs returned. They got married and they wanted homes and all those new appliances. That's when the suburban explosion happened. It was huge in California because land was cheap, jobs were plentiful, and the weather was great. The California lifestyle was advertised throughout the United States. It was outdoor living, your own backyard, and lots of new stuff like bright colored Formica dinette sets and Melmac dinnerware. Melmac is very hard plastic and it is pretty impossible to break. and wading pools and pool toys. All of this used plastic, which was sturdy and cheap. Plastic was great for containers. Think Tupperware, which changed the way that Americans stored food and created a whole new set of jobs for stay-at-home women. Plastic was cheap. It had unlimited uses. It could be hard or soft, molded or laminated, brightly colored or transparent. It did not need expensive handwork to finish or assemble. This is a short list of plastic product categories. There's a lot more, and some of it you may not want to give up. We use some plastic things for years, decades even. Think of light switches or buttons or Legos. These are pretty indestructible products, and they can be reused and passed on. However, the reality is that the very factors that made plastic products so popular also led to a use it once and toss it away practice. Now we are awash in plastic waste. Environmentalists have called for an end to plastic bags and plastic straws. That might work for straws, but plastic bags are going to be hard to replace. Ironically, when plastic bags were first developed, they were intended to be reused and multi-used. So maybe it's not the bag that's the problem. The medical field is awash in plastic, and that often works to our benefit. All those material considerations of cost, moldability, weight, and functionality mean that medical professionals and their patients are safer and better cared for. And there are some new kinds of plastics that are recyclable or reusable in various ways. Like all wicked problems, there is no one right answer to plastic. Like all questions about sustainability, there are a variety of options, and many of them focus more on how we use what we have rather than what can we make to replace what we have. These are design and consumption questions, and they go far beyond 20th century concerns of form and function. These are your questions to help solve, since you are both designers and users. So, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to give up? How are you going to deal with plastic?